with
But
Indonesia.
how are you equal if you basically take people's land?
This is because the Japanese try to give them local people military training, local people, and they try to organize local people, local cities.
Of course, Uno-san, how do you think that we managed to control Indonesia only by giving them military training and using them as a force against their own people?
This is obvious that we're going to consider for Indonesian independent history, 1930 to 40. Japanese, they try to give like a Suharto, like a Sukarno, especially Sukarno, Japanese military.
But they were doing exactly the same thing as we did. We took
no. Your education background is completely different from us. I think you a lot of things misunderstanding Indonesian occupation.
Okay. So let's take Indonesia as an example. So what we did, we worked together with the people on Ambon and who wanted to be independent, and on Aceh.
Which country is it?
This is Indonesia. These are the islands. People who wanted to be independent for a long time. We used their strive for
independence. Which area Ambon is where is located?
It's Aceh. So that's,
Aceh?
Yeah. So Aceh, Ambon. These are areas, islands in Indonesia.
Different races living there, right?
Sorry.
Different races living there, right?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's different races, but basically these people wanted to be independent.
Indonesian government always, in their history, they neglected them.
Well,
like a Chinese.
What happened is that basically we used those people to train them, to give them a privileged position, and then with the ultimate objective that they could become independent from Indonesia.
This is the intention of that people, intention for Ambon independence.
Right. Well, actually, so after the war, a lot of people from Ambon came to the Netherlands. They were overrepresented in the people that came to the Netherlands because they basically collaborated with the Dutch because we were there, so we could actually help them to advance their agenda. And this is exactly what happened. That's what the British did. That's what the French did. That's what the Japanese did.
Why the Dutch government supported them to be independent?
Why? Because we didn't have enough people to control such a vast country. There are so many millions of people living there. We are a very small country, so the only way that we could basically exert our influence there is to collaborate with minority groups and give them more military training and weapons, so that they could fight and represent our interest. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, as you know,
that's how all Western nations did it.
As you know, Indonesia is 13,000 islands and many races. And they, after independence, Indonesia, they neglect Aceh, Ambon, any other small
exactly, because they collaborated with the Dutch.
Yeah, so Indonesia against them. Like China is the same. China is they just west area. Many people, Turkish people live there, and Muslim people live there. They neglected for the independence. They try to govern.
Where?
Yeah.
Turkish. Where?
They speak Turkish in the western area of China. Xinjiang. Xinjiang area. Do you know that?
The Uyghur or what was?
Yeah, that's right. They speak Turkish.
Turkish?
Yes.
Oh, that's very far away.
Yeah, but their face is different from Chinese. Chinese. The same is Ambon and Aceh is the same. They try to organize one country. And that's supporting Ambon, but the Indonesian government all the way around they neglected, they denied it.
Right. So basically, that's the way that colonialism works. People or colonialist powers, they try to find these kinds of groups, and the minority groups were usually they had an agenda, they supported them, and in order to give them independence. But
this is the end. This is some other intention they have.
Yeah.
But Japanese supported Indonesia independently. They didn't have any other intention, just independent as a nation.
Okay, but if you say so.
No political intention and just no background. Indonesia just try to support the government, and they try to military give them the organized local military power by Indonesian people.
So to go back to the to discussion on Saturdays. So the reason why Japan attacked Pearl Harbor is because
Pearl Harbor. Yeah, I like it.
Because they actually, even though they knew they were going to lose the war, they still wanted so bad to make Asian countries independent that they felt strong enough about it to actually get into a war with the United States.
Yeah, you need to understand. You need to understand the background and politics and military. Japanese. Very sophisticated environment they have, especially attacking Pearl Harbor. That was so crazy. Why? I didn't tell the truth last Saturday. But this is because of they didn't have this idea is not coming to that year of waging war. They suddenly came that idea on that year. Okay? Why? This is very strange history. Originally, Japanese military tried to battle against Russia instead of going to south. No idea to waging war against America on that year. Nobody. But why suddenly they came up to the attacking Pearl Harbor? This is because of this is very obvious. Navy. If they're going to wage war against China, at that time already started waging war in China. Only army position. And Japan is very strange country. They try to allocate one budget, Navy and Army, okay, 50-50. So Navy want to get more money, so they decided to attack America, even though they have no future for win. That is, but my curiosity is, my weird issues for Japanese government. How come they decided to kind of decision? All Japanese people did know military power 1/10 of America, but how come they accepted kind of attacking Pearl Harbor? And I imagine the same as current government. Abe distributed masks for every people. They spent $460 million US dollars. Why they decided kind of crazy decision? Okay, and why they decided kind of sort of thing? Because I don't know the process of how the kind of final decision making. Exactly the same as attacking Pearl Harbor. If you have a common sense, nobody agree against America. At that time, American popular ordinary people never thinking starting war against Japan. But that time, American government tried to intentionally want to start a war against Japan. But why Japan decided kind of stupid decision? Just consider for that. They are at that time, 1941, they already waging war for 10 years with China. They don't have power. They don't have money.
Right.
They don't have people.
But I don't believe that a country can be collectively insane and make a disastrous decision without any solid justification for their attack. They must have had in their minds at that time, given the circumstances at that time, they must have had some kind of reason, even though it may be flawed, but there must have been some kind of justification, some kind of reason at the time that justified to make that decision. I don't believe that this is just a crazy decision. That's not how reality works. In reality, probably they did have a very clear idea and a very good reason to actually attack the United States. So the interesting question is, okay, whatever did they imagine the situation was at that time to make them arrive at that decision?
Yeah, of course, I agree with you.
I don't believe it's just craziness.
Of course, I agree with you. But how they military, okay, Navy persuaded Japanese people. Like a Konoe government. It's, why, how are they going to persuade Japanese people? Or media outlet?
So how did they do it?
This I read a lot of materials, but I cannot understand how that scenario, like very similar to Abenomics. If you're going to distribute mask for Japanese or every people spending 466 million and using his family business, supporting his family business, so they spend money, but how come everybody agrees for him? This is I don't understand.
I don't think everyone agreed on the idea, and I don't think everyone is agreeing on the current decision of Abe administration. There used to be said there was one out that someone move ahead without making consensus with this. Then the central government headquarters had to be confirmed after something happened.
You're talking means their military
So that
power.
could happen. That could happen in, I don't know, it may be on Pearl Harbor attack, it may be on Manchuria invasion.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Military power, no objection.
Maybe it may have been somebody, a wild cannon, who disobeyed rules and just started something that later on was kind of like, okay, how can we stop it? No, we can't. So, okay, it happened. Now, how are we going to deal with the situation?
No.
That sounds more logical to me than
yeah.
that was a sort of decision making.
Yeah, it was not so centralized. So rather is decentralization, and so that the people could act as a one. So the Japanese military from some point was so weak that people can act as a one.
Right, especially the government, right? Maybe the military was not so weak, but at least according to this video, the government was more or less a puppet government, but the real power since 1860 was with the military.
Oh, you mean the Meiji Restoration? 1860.
Yes, since the Meiji Restoration.
Okay, like Takashi said, I agree with him. At that time, Abenomics is the same. They opponent or counterpart people cannot speak out against that decision because of centralized power.
Yeah, the control allocation of the control was so diverse, not so organized. Even now, even in one country, one company, some stupid decision or direction, and without no future was made. The followers are just following that decision without thinking. So
what I remember from the same video is that actually, and I don't know if you can confirm this, but it was said that a number of politicians have been killed in the 1930s.
Oh, yes, killed.
Yeah, there was an incident. So young generals, the people, young persons studying in the school, they suddenly came to some place to kill the senior officers.
Wow.
After World War II, that kind of sort of thing never happened. And the Japanese is no protest people or this kind of movement. They don't do that.
But young officers, they killed their superiors.
Yeah.
To drive their agenda.
Yes. Against the government decision.
There was also such a thing as the, according to the video again, the thought police.
Yeah. By military young officers.
Right. So in that environment, if people didn't hesitate to use violence against people who had different ideas, maybe that's also something that could have resulted in these kinds of this kind of decision making.
Yes, and if several decades ago, kind of Abenomics decision, maybe 1 million, 2 million movement against government, but not now. Nobody they don't take any action. Or 100 years ago, he's supposed to be killed.
Yeah, I think the way to calculate Japanese way is always when something started, it's gonna be radical, whatever it is, like stupid and no plan, no future, and nobody can stop it. But someone is saying nowadays Japanese are given civilian control, so that a kind of the mistake would never happen. But I don't think there is a civilian control. Just looking at the current decision of Abenomics with the other things going on for us. Yeah.
Okay, but that gives me the next question. So, who were these? Because it's very interesting. I don't know Japan from that era, but who were these people who were bold enough to make the decisions without creating consensus? Because in today's Japan, I don't see these kinds of people who go ahead and drive their agenda without creating consensus with others. It seems like in contemporary business culture, for example, there are no people who are bold enough to stand up and say, even jump rank, like the young officers in the army, as you described, who killed their superiors. I don't see anybody killing their superiors at the moment. Nobody who has a strong enough agenda to go ahead without creating consensus. Who were those people?
Yeah, I don't think they were. So it's like more like we allowing the limited people to act as like dictator. But that someone, the journalist or someone on the TV is saying that today Japanese are living is free with civilian control, but I don't think there is civilian control, because the definition of it, having civilian control is we can prevent some limited person from making decisions by themselves for themselves. But looking at the current situation, if some person could make a decision as just according to their intention and idea without having that discussion and having effort to make consensus.
Well, it's all. I don't know why things are the way they are at the moment in Japanese democracy. It seems like people have the power to actually object their government, but I think that most people see their politicians as mostly harmless, not particularly beneficial, but mostly harmless, so they just let them do whatever they're doing. But people just don't seem to be engaged in Japanese politics. They don't protest. They don't really feel that whatever they choose, democratic or LDP, is nothing's going to change much.
Yeah, sometimes that kind of the way of thinking acting is going to be stupid, as it's often the case when someone will make the decision. Yeah, as you mentioned, they are trying to be not harmful to anyone. So what they have to do is to make the coordination. Coordination.
Actually, polling is statistics is 10% down supporting for other government after Abenomics.